the Labour Party in your area, so I want...
No, I used to be. At 40, when I was 40 years of age, I'm 56 now incidentally, but at 40 years of age I was the youngest member in my district Labour Party.
The point I'm making is that the most obvious thing for me during the strike is the role that young miners have played for the first time in the strike itself. I want to know if those young miners have actually come into the Labour Party and somehow transformed the Labour Party. What effects had on the local Labour Party, given such a sort of the Labour Party feels such an important part of life in South Wales and always has been. I mean, the Labour Party's being like bounced and kicks up the arse.
Well, we're hoping, we're coercing these young people every time we meet them. Why don't you join the Labour Party? You're politically motivated now, and of course they say, how does one become a member of the Labour Party? We've got a situation in Cornwall where the Labour councillor there in this small village, he's like King Dick, he doesn't want any new members of the Labour Party because he will rock the boat, you see. But I'm part of a larger group, and we definitely encourage younger people because for a start they made my role easier because I was an attacker of the established order. As I told you, to be a Labour county councillor in my area, you were a deacon in a chapel, which meant that if you kicked over the traces, in the chapel, they'd kick you out of the chapel. Not so very long back, if you were an unwed mother, you were kicked out of the chapel. See? You had the Jim Jim Williams's and Jim Price's pit overmen. They were in charge of the whole shift, when you were there, and if you were rebellious there, they had you there. You either docked your wages or you lost your job. And then, when you were really kicked over the traces and punched somebody up the hooter on a Saturday night, you were brought in front of the beak, and who was there was this bloody guy, this killer.
Wales is one of the few areas of the country who voted for Healy rather than Tony Benn in that election for deputy leader. And Wales has been traditionally one of the most right-wing areas of the Labour Party, where the most corrupt, if you like, most sort of the smallest memberships are kind of small private clubs. And these scenes of sort of whole gangs of young miners sort of chanting and marching. It must have some effect on those organisations.
Well, it does, and hopefully, it'll continue to do so. As I said, before the strike, in the last 10 years, the structure has changed politically in South Wales because you've got a younger membership. As I said, we're more tolerant, more politically active, and themselves are more tolerant. Well, hopefully we'll be able to encourage these young miners, young wives and young men into the Labour Party, to make it still a more viable political entity. But it's a hard job trying to convince these people because this is the first time they've ever been involved politically. It's a bit heady for them, because they're involved in decision making. They've been all over the country. They met different people, and if we could keep them motivated after the strike, I think it would be a wonderful victory.
Well, could I answer part of it again? Is that what I started doing early on in the strike? We were sending miners out. We were part of those miners ourselves, staying out in frozen cars, arriving in the middle of England, no idea where you were. You're on a spot on the map, and you were staying in a frozen car. Well, it was just uneconomic to do that because one night in a frozen car and you had to come home. You could only pick it for 1 or 2 days. You remember the early days, Alan? So what we struck about, we needed an organisation. Well, the organisation was there, the Labour Party. So what we started doing was contacting, when we knew we had to go somewhere, a particular spot on the map, that we would contact the nearest Labour Party and the nearest secretary of that Labour Party. And we'd ask them quite bluntly over the telephone, will you put up some striking miners who are coming into your area? And this is what I was saying. At times they thought you were joking. At other times they thought, that someone was, trying to be funny on the phone and trap them into some sort of system, But this is what happened. The Labour Party rose magnificently to what is happening in this country, and they, in every case that we contacted Labour secretaries, they took them in, and not only did they take them in and put them up for one night, they put them up for months on end. Prior to the money going out to South Wales, when the picketing was reduced, they put them up for months on end, and they put them up and they introduced them to all the local political groups and all the local people that could help the South Wales miners, or anywhere nationally, in its aims to broaden this fight. So the question then, how do we keep them active? Because the number of times that I've heard said, because we have known as being party members, is the Labour Party's been magnificent. I'll never forget this. And our answer is, well, as soon as you go back to work, the second week's pay, I'll be there with a form to fill in, And they laugh and joke, but what they don't realise is I will be there with a bloody form to fill in. And I'm going to go one step in front of that now. I'm going to get them unwaged if I can. Because this is what we must capitalise on it. And to answer your question about what has happened to the Labour Party, I only joined in 1979 when this woman came to a throne, right? That's what made me political. So everyone's got to start somewhere. Now, for many years, the youth of this country has never accepted its role within the working class system. Different to Tom's generation, where where politics was a part of the lodge when you were a young boy underground, Tom. From what I've read, that went out of the system. That went out of it. Hopefully now, with this strike, they've become political, and we can then capitalise on that political aspect of the strike. So we've got a lot of work to do. We did slip in South Wales. My own MP is a Conservative, after many years of being a Labour. Well, it was always Labour up until this guy. Powys. So you see, we did slip, but we slipped into people like me because I wasn't political prior to 1979. So there comes a stage in everyone's life where they become political. So it's not for me to knock them. I do sometimes think, well, where are they? Why didn't they see this? Why haven't they seen that? But now they have come to that point. Let's try and capitalise on that and make their passage into the Labour Party as easy as possible. Because it's only by having these angry young men and angry young women in the Labour Party that we can make it what it once was. Something to change. Because if Kinder gets in tomorrow, I think Tom and I and Ali agree, if Kinder gets in tomorrow, we've got a hell of a lot to do to change this country, to change the Labour Party before we change the country.
Yeah.
So you see, we must have this mass of angry young people into the Labour Party to change it, as we know, from the grassroots stuff. That's if you get past the paperwork, of course. That's another job you got to do, isn't it?
Can I say also one thing, that when we formed the food fund in my area, I had to call upon the Labour Party, to set it up. I went to the first meeting. I think the strike was 2 weeks in. They had formed a distribution centre in the Dillis Valley. And I was asked to invite, I wanted to be part of the strike. Obviously, I couldn't get on the ticket line, and I was a very invidious politician of being an ex-official, and an official who wanted to be part of the strike. Well, you couldn't take over the role that you once had of being a union leader, for want of a better word, or you'd be put in somebody else's nose of the joint. So I got involved, seriously with the food fund. And when I went back home, I had to sit and think, who the hell's going to help me? And I immediately called upon my Labour contemporaries, and they pray for them. They rallied round. We had the local welfare hall, and these same Labour people are there twice a week with food collection. They run raffles, jumble sales. There's an ongoing bazaar every week, and it's the Labour Party. They are involved primarily, and that's what they did in our area. I'm not saying that they did it in all areas. Not to knock our friend in the corner there, but I found that the Labour Party in Cassette were very, very weak, that they should have taken the initiative. You see, there's a very large pit near where the one comes from.
And drone him down.
Yes. And they've got a fellow who gets publicity as the ex-chairman of Canida Pit, and he's been trying to get people back to work because, for a start, it's a matter of spite with him. He was knocked off the Lord Chairmanship by a young up-and-coming youngster, Tony Chano. And ever since then, he's been venting his spleen in the press, saying that Canida didn't really want to go on strike. And of course, he's getting all the publicity going. But this is the only weak spot in South Wales, quite frankly, is this large pit, which has a cosmopolitan workforce. And we fear, we've even sent our women's support group down there to try to, get things going there. But I find that the Labour Party, which is, they're strong enough down there, but they're very, very slow in organising these small villages into a viable food fund, you see. Because if there's any breakthrough, going to happen, in a strike breaking. It'll come from this, as I said, this cosmopolitan, with this bloody ex-chairman getting all the press coverage, and ex-chairman. I mean, what the hell is an ex-chairman? Tony Holman, ex-chairman, but he's getting all the publicity going.
And he's alleged that funds raised have been used to send people off the gift duty and that. He's into the Western trading. So.
But he's also rejected the invitation to audit our accounts. He's also rejected that,
Absolutely.
Well, we've got one more question of you, and it's been suggested that after that we stop this discussion for now and carry on later on in the pub. Is that alright?
All in favour, please vote.
And then Martin wants to say something as well.
We take this opportunity to present a book to the comrades from Lesbians and Gay Support the Miners. We chose this particular book, Geoffrey Weeks is coming out, because it's one that chronicles our own history, our own struggles. It's one that we want to take into the working class to make them aware of, where we've actually come from, and actually to ally ourselves to your struggles and into the working class.
Well, they bring in the miners' library to the hall. They're already moving the stuff in there, so it can go there.
Same we've written in there. In unity and strength, in comradeship, in solidarity, a mark of friendship from Lesbians and Gay Support the Miners, September 1984.
The only one that can read it,
I forgot something, by the way. We've also got £200 and odd to send off this week.
What style?
Well, I want to tell you, that as I initiated, this get together by coming to see you last week, I think that you should take it back, and we have the chairman of our support group is Dr. Howard Francis, who is the curator of the Swansea Miners Library, and he has initiated a move to bring back the miners' libraries to the welfare halls. You see, at one time, a lot of the welfare halls were broken up, and all these marvellous working class libraries were spattered all over the country. He managed to get a lot of the good books into the Swansea Miners Library, and now he's starting a movement to bring the libraries back into the welfare halls, and he has been distributing some really good books, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And if you can put that in with it.
Definitely, we'd be proud to put it back in. I think we'll have a read of it first, maybe.
Oh, we'll have a read of it first.
But no, it's like you're saying, we'd be proud to put it into the Miners Library, and thank you for thinking of us that way. The money, the money is tremendous, and but to think of the comradeship that it comes from, that's the most important. But we have got work to do, let's be honest. We mustn't kid ourselves it's all plain sailing. Like we've been saying about after the strike, we have got work to do. But by you staying in London and, being active in London, I think it would be important that if you come down to Wales within groups over several weekends, because there you can see the strike, you can see the effects of the strike and the effects of the money that you are sending and having, and also you can sort of help, as you were saying, with lesbians and the gays within our villages, within our communities. Because let's be quite honest, when I came up here, I didn't know what to say. You mustn't mention lesbian, you mustn't mention gay, that might be the wrong thing to say, because obviously whilst I'm broader-minded than most, you've been conditioned to think, I'm not wanting to hurt your feelings, how do you approach it? So at the end of the day, I thought, well, you've got to say what you feel and you've got to speak it. Of course, when I met the boys, it made it easy, because obviously I hadn't met anyone that had declared themselves either a lesbian or a gay up until then. And that is my ignorance then. But surely it's only by, now I feel much more relaxed talking to you this week, it's only by this getting to know each other on these sort of lines that we can break these barriers down.
And it's not just barriers with you, the lesbians and gays, but it's like for me, I've never been to South Wales, I've never been in the mining community. So I mean, there's that barrier there as well.
We better get knee pads for them then, is it? What is it, one of the boys from the NGA were down about a fortnight ago, and they managed to get them underground into, was it Blind Man, Dolly? Or she went to Volga and tell them what they had to say, right?
We don't have £1,000.
We told the manager,
A shift,
hurt his
not a week.
feelings. But this is the opportunity. You've got to see the different social structure we have down there, you know. I think it's important that if you do come down, you know, and you come down as soon as possible.
Well, I took Harry Fricker down to Abermont. This Harry Fricker was a cockney who moved to a rural area, married a Welsh girl all years and years ago. Big beefy fellow, about 17 stone. And when we formed this industrial committee now, we wrote to the area director called Philip Weeks, so he's a bit of a bullshitter, but you know, you see him on the press very often. But he said, oh, he'd be more than pleased to cooperate with our council, you know, and you know, he'd lay things on for us, you know, to go down to Abermont. Now, Abermont is a pit, very deep pit, that has a job recruiting miners. It had the job, but obviously because of the high rate of unemployment, now you know that it's got a waiting list of hundreds. But at that particular time, going back 5 years, they had a job recruiting. So Harry Fricker now, all 17 stone of him, was kitted out in an overall, helmet, knee pads, gas mask, lamp, helmet, and he had to crawl 200 yards up this face, which is about 3 feet high. He went up 20 yards and collapsed with claustrophobia. And so they had to drag him out through the face. Took 10 men to carry him out. He gave a tenner out to these boys, and he went on television and said, I wouldn't go down there for £1,000 a day, just like this fellow. And Philip Weeks said, this man has put industrial relations back in South Wales 20 years. He was very, very peeved about it.
Thank you very much for coming to talk to us anyway, but we've got a little bit more business to get on with.
All right,
Okay.
Well, can I just say, we've circulated the list around this evening, and there's about 14 people so far who have expressed an interest in coming down to Delays. We haven't actually got the dates fixed yet, but roughly the weekend of Friday the 26th of October, so that's about 6 weeks' time.
That's right, yeah.
But as I say, we're actually in the middle of the business meeting. We've got to actually organise.
I think that's the weekend. Margaret's booking you on for that.
That's great. That would be perfect if you could come down that weekend. I think you'd enjoy very much. We've got a Welsh poet, and we've got a folk group, and we've got a country and western group, all in the same hall, in the mine as well, for all where all the work is actually carried out. So if they could make that weekend, it would be perfect.
And if there's too much noise there, we can always stay in the bar.
Needless to say, bring your own tin of beans and a spoon with it.
Without beans, is it?
No, we'll take care of everything. You've got my number at home, right? You spoke to Margaret as well, alright? We'll take care of everything. You just confirm you're coming down that weekend. I think it would be a good weekend to come down as well, because we can show you the serious side of the strike, and we can show you a little bit of the enjoyment that comes out of the strike as well.
Yeah.
It's to raise funds. We put on these things to raise funds, you know, so that we get as many people in there, and as well as trapping them to pay in at the door, we trap them into buying raffle tickets and all the rest of it. You know, we take the bucket before we finish it. Yeah?
Can I just say, I mean, do you want to come out for a drink with us tonight? What you're doing next?
What about that meeting up in...
Well, we can manage a pint, but you won't finish your meeting yet, do we?
No, that's the problem.
Can I suggest we move to a vote to dissolve the meeting for half an hour for a quick drink? And then
Yeah.
Well, we'll never actually come back.
Well, have we got any other business really to discuss?
Collections is the main point.
Well, that'll only be 5 minutes.
Right, this is how it happens. You can sit and listen to it.
I think this trip to Delays is really important, and I was saying just before you came in that a lot of people I spoke to this weekend from outside London expressed an interest. And as a group, I mean, I think it could be a way that we could spread ourselves more outside London and get more people starting groups and give people confidence in the smaller towns, even in places like Manchester. And so if we can sort of actually get something together, people who are interested in organising this trip, I don't know, sort of put it what it was. And you know, if people want to be signed on the sheet.